Barbara Tucker, she did the backgrounds on that track. And I could hear her still screaming, "Hiya!" Okay. And all of a sudden I hear the piano, because that's me playing the keys on that record. And I hear my piano parts and I hear the song come in and on Kiss Master Mix. And I said, I screamed because it was New York radio. It was my calling, my catalyst, my calling card.
Today is Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. Who are we speaking with?
My name is Lenny Fontana.
Fantastic. Who is Lenny Fontana for those that don't know?
I'm known as a record producer, a DJ, remixer, artist, in dance music and house music. Pretty good, extensive catalog of music I've made over the years and remixed. Been doing it for more than 30 years. So I've amassed a pretty good catalog of good songs I've been involved in.
Excellent. Tell us, where were you born and where do you live now?
Brooklyn, New York, baby. Born in Brooklyn. Still live in New York. I'm actually out in Long Island in Oceanside.
Okay.
So I've never left, traveled the whole world. And right now, due to COVID, right back in New York, in my studio.
Let's start from the beginning. What was your introduction to dance music?
My introduction to dance music was at my mother's house, listening to the radio. In those days, it was Frankie Crocker on the radio, and my mother had the music on all the time. It was a simpler time then because there was no internet. There was none of these extracurricular activities. There was, 4 or 5 channels on the TV, and radio had just became FM at that point. And Frankie Crocker had an R&B station called WBLS in New York, and my mother and father used to play that. So I'd be hearing WBLS music, and in those days it was James Brown, it was Al Green, it was all the soul people, pre-disco. The OJs were just starting to come up. Philly International Records was starting, but it was still early in the game. So Frankie's taste as a DJ, as I looked into him later and I did my biography on Larry Levan and found out about Frankie, he had a huge eclectic palette in what he liked and what he played on the station. So in the interim, by doing that, my ears were open as a young kid, hearing all this, and my world changed.
Let's take a step back. What is WBLS for people that don't know?
Oh, I'm sorry. I asked that same question. WBLS is the world's best looking sounds. It's 107.5 New York City, New York radio, FM on the dial. Okay. One of the greatest stations of the time, of the late 60s, 70s, 80s. It still is. It's still going strong. It's a little more older in its space now with the music. It's more traditional, the way the program director programs it to an older clientele. But back in the 70s, it was the hottest thing ever. Disco was all over the dial. R&B disco.
And then who is Frankie Crocker?
Frankie Crocker was an air personality. He was of Black origin, of course, and he had that suave sound. He would say things like, "Your radio ain't on unless Frankie Crocker's on." Things. He just had a way of talking. It was like, this is 107.5 WBL kicking S. I mean, things he would say, you'd be like, Frankie, come, and he'd have a commercial that would go, "Hey, Frankie Crocker!" Everybody would scream, and he modeled himself after great DJs, like I would say Murray the K. That was pre to him. Some of those white jocks that he took some of their mannerisms, and with his suave way of talking, and he was just eloquent in how he laid it all out. People just loved him. He had that drive time show, and you would just lock in, and he'd tell you all about the club stories that was going on in the nightclubs and the places he was visiting. And here, if you're a young person, really young, and you never went anywhere, you're just imagining what he's telling you. That's how visual he was as an air broadcaster. What I later found out was not only was he an air personality, or what we call radio DJ, true radio DJ, he also was the man who picked the records that were being played when he would be called the program director of the station. So he was influencing New York radio, no less having his own show as well.
And then talk to us about the transition from listening to WBLS to your first time going to the Paradise Garage.
Jesus Christ. Here's the funny part. The transition was like this. When I was listening to WBLS, okay, he was a superstar DJ Frankie Crocker we're talking about, going to visit another DJ named Larry Levan, and he loved what he saw at the garage. So what he was doing was he was airing the stuff, what he was seeing, and also all the clubs, like Studio 54 and all those clubs. Now, mind you, if you're a young kid or or never went out, you're just listening and you're envisioning all this. I was blessed to be able to get the anniversary of the garage that Frankie had talked into the owners to broadcast it over 107.5 on the radio that night, a 5-hour show with Sylvester and all of them. This is 1979. I never saw the garage yet. You know, I didn't know what clubbing was, you know, truly, you know. Oh my God, when I went there, one word or one phrase I use, Sodom and Gomorrah, in Technicolor. Listen to me carefully. You've never seen dancing like this if you've never been to a club like this. You never smelled the aroma in a room like this if you've never been to a club like this. It smelled like a gym locker room. The fire energy was 20/10, okay? The music, he could have played garbage and the sound system was absolutely unreal. And that's the word I can use, unreal. The stacks, the layout, the dance floor had some feel to it, that it actually vibrated. Like it felt like the floor, when the people went crazy, they would jump up and down. I remember standing on the wall, like glued, because I was just in awe of what I was seeing. I couldn't believe that this existed. And my whole world completely, and when I tell you completely changed, I wouldn't be doing house music today. I wouldn't have been playing the way I play music, if I didn't go to Garage University. And I say it like that. It was that intense. Some of the friends I have today stem back to that era that I still talk to. Incredible times. It's not like I just went to the club and, you know, I didn't go every week. I went from time to time. My friend David Lozada was the one that may he rest in peace, that brought me into that room and introduced me to everybody. But let me tell you, the education of everything. I mean, I was told another famous DJ, I will quote what he said. He said, Lenny's been taught by the best. And he meant that in a very gay, loving way. And I said, yes, I know. It's like everything I learned was from all of them at the garage. I mean, and not only just at the garage, it went past that. The same people we hung out with, they were in the music industry. I knew them when I used to go to the offices. They were all there. It was incredible that I had that chance to experience it all at the right time. I mean, I would love to experience it in 77. I wasn't old enough, but I got to experience it in the 80s. I got to see it all. I mean, and here's the crazy part. You know, your parents say to you this, oh, when we were kids, things were so much better. And I get that. But there's 3 phases of the garage that they talk about. There's phase 1, which is the construction parties. A lot of that crowd left in 80, 81. Then you have another second set of crowd, like 81 to 84. And then you got the last bit, 83, like 84-ish to the end, 87. A lot of those people, the people I know, because it's my age group, not everybody I know, but if that's the ones I remember seeing all the time that go to those reunions too, that are alive still to talk about it. So a lot of the first generation of the garage people, they're dead due to demise of AIDS, and drug addiction was another big problem in that club. I mean, that not only just the garage, but also I'm going to say 70% of the crowd that went to the Saint, which I call it the white alter ego of the garage, they're gone too. I got to experience the Saint. Wasn't my thing. I never liked the music too high energy. I loved about the Saint was that planetarium projector and the way they had the elevated dance floor and the planetarium feel. That was incredible. But the sound system garage had no other room in New York sound like the garage. No other room sound like the garage. Some came close. Comparing it today, then I tell people this all the time. You had Underground, Palladium, Melons. I mean, you had so many different clubs. Crisco's. Even the worst sound system in that era, the worst, was better than most of the clubs now that were out. It's that sad. We used to say, oh, this club sounds like dog doo-doo. Meanwhile, now you go play a place that sounds like a radio. It's crazy. Well, pre-COVID, of course, up until the time when clubs were open. Hopefully we get back to that soon.
Let's do a brief education, because we're talking as if people know what the garage is. What is the Paradise Garage?
To me, it's like an institution. Paradise Garage was a members-only nightclub created by Michael Brody. Michael Brody was the owner, who is no longer with us. He had also died right around the end of the garage, was 1987, of complications due to HIV. His original idea of the garage was to create a members-only club for men, basically, because it was a gay men's type of club. They started out where he found the property. I think David DePino, if I remember, told me they found the property. David DePino was also a resident DJ, worked with Larry Levan for many years, head of the record pool as well-respected DJ and a friend. David had told us, if I remember correctly, him and Michael Brody were looking for spaces around New York, and they came across this place called the Parking Garage on where the club became housed. And Michael was able to get his hands on it. And what he was doing during the day was he was using it as a parking garage, parking cars. And then at night and the weekends, he had Larry Levan playing. And they started in the back at a construction party, which became later the back room, the Crystal Room, which, that became famous later. But at first, the Crystal Room was the original room where, from what I understand, where Sawdust, and this was where they were raising the money. They called it construction parties. They would do one every week, went on for a while. So they could raise money. And Michael Brody's parking, imagine this, parking cars during the day as a parking garage. And then at night, they're making it the Paradise Garage because it was over a garage. Okay. So in the end, as it grew, nobody knew who Larry Levan was in the beginning. They just knew about a club. Larry came off of Nicky Siano, another famous DJ from the Gallery. Nicky created this with his brother called the Gallery, which was modeled after David Mancuso's Loft. They wanted to create their own space, and they did. Nicky became a DJ who was based out of Brooklyn and brought this into Manhattan, Houston, Prince. So you understand that the garage is Nicky Siano's footprint of the Gallery is the footprint of Studio 54, and I think garage, more studio than garage, because Steve Rebell, the owner of that, loved Nicky Siano, had Nicky play, loved the atmosphere of the Gallery. But the difference is Nicky Siano Gallery crowd, when garage went to go to Larry Levan. So that's how that goes back in the stages of events. Now we're talking 1974, 75, 76. Larry Levan is understudying with Nicky Siano, and so is, may he, another famous DJ, may he rest in peace, Frankie Knuckles, before Frankie went to Chicago. Frankie, actually, if I remember correctly, Frankie became friends with Nicky. Nicky had hired Frankie, and then a couple weeks later it says to Nicky, DJ Nicky Siano, I have a crazy, crazy friend named Larry. Can he come work? Yeah, we'll bring him down, Nicky said. They started blowing balloons, and they learned how to work in a nightclub and put parties together. And Nicky was the one that, even Kenny Carpenter, another great friend of mine, DJ, says the same thing. Nicky showed us basically how to play music, how to, we all look at Nicky. So Nicky's the blueprint. So the garage. I'm going to guess Michael Brody went to Gallery too, because it was also gay, in a loft, sound system. The modeling is beginning. You got Mancuso down the block. You got Nicky Siano. Mancuso is 99 Prince Street. The loft. Nick and David plays one record after another, no mixing. And that's that. Nicky creates the gallery, and Nicky creates it where he's mixing and seamlessly through the night. And he's also the first guy to have a third turntable. And Larry Levan meets up with Richard Long, and Richard Long creates Reed Street. Richard Long, RLA Sound, the creator of RLA Sound, creates his own club. Says to Larry, come work with me. Larry works there for a year. So Nicky shows him the ropes, how to mix. Larry becomes the DJ. Michael Brody falls in love with Larry as the DJ. And that's when Michael Brody says, listen, I'm going to take you, Reed Street closes. We're going to keep you quiet for a little bit. I'm going to build this club, and we're going to make this around you. So that's crazy. Imagine someone comes to you and says, we're going to build this club around you. And in the intern, turns out Michael Brody begins the club, puts Larry Levan in there. The idea of it is, when they open up the Paradise Garage, they want to have this white chic crowd. Gay white man, and I say gay white because they wanted to make a lot of this in their idea. They wanted to have that Fire Island she type of crowd that was going to go out to the Ice Palace on the weekends and come to the garage in the wintertime and party with them. Well, that story kind of went a little sour, and I'll tell you how that happened. When Garage finally opens officially, Larry Levan is there from inception because he's helping them build the place. He's working, and he's doing all kinds of carpentry and all kinds of stuff, fabrication. In those days, you picked up whatever you needed to do to fix and get things done. Okay, you didn't call people. You did what you had to do because you had limited funds. So Larry was just as involved, I know, with Michael Brody and David and all of them that were really there for the groundbreaking of it. When Richard Long, the sound designer, was delivering the system, they hit a snowstorm, from what I understand. The system was coming in that night or that day. And the opening was in January of 77. And so Larry wanted the place to be ready. They did all the basic stuff, lighting and this and that, but he really wanted that system to be up and running the way it should be. I mean, perfection that night. Well, needless to say, they sent out the invitations. They were going to do an earlier party, 8 o'clock. The snow's coming down. All the white snow queens are lined up. When I say snow queens, all the white she crowd, I went to the Saint, is all lined up to come to see this garage, as they were calling it, the Paradise Garage. They were probably throwing shade, as you could tell, on that door because they were freezing out there. The snow's coming down. Needless to say, Larry wouldn't let nobody in because he was rushing Richard Long to get that system done. 1 o'clock in the morning, they finally opened the doors. Those snow queens left, vowed to never come back ever again. And they didn't come back. So Michael Brody was he devastated. He wanted that crowd in his club. Needless to say, it went a completely different way. And I'm so glad it did. They wound up getting the Dominican, the Black, the Puerto Rican. Everything else was coming to the garage, and that's what made it unbelievable. So here you go. The Paradise Garage to me is a microcosm what New York looks like on the dance floor. You had a bit of everything, everybody, Asian, black, white, Puerto Rican, Italian. It was a little bit of everything. And the puppet master was Larry Levan. He knew which music worked for his crowd. He would say on the right side, listen, watch them over there. He would go, look at Miss Thing. They go, they leave, they get in Jack. He says, I'm gonna play their favorite record. He pulled the record out, he would play it, and I would just be watching. Like David said, look, like David was saying, watch Miss Thing turn them right around. Play some record like Melbourne Moore. They were like going goodbye, and everybody's going bye. And all of a sudden, he said, watch, I'm gonna play it. He put the record on, he dropped it in, and then they would just be like, they look up at the booth, and then next thing you know, they're there for 4 more hours dancing with him. I said, that's what really made me realize what a great DJ was. It wasn't that his mixing was great. He knew how to work you. He knew how to work you. And no club owner would have dealt with the shenanigans that Larry Levan put Michael Brody through. So think about a club being built around a DJ. People don't really know who the DJ is. The club gets famous, then the DJ gets famous in New York. So it was like a seesaw effect. Larry Levan's super famous, so is the Garage at the end, you know? And that's what I think the Paradise Garage, from what I've visually seen in my research and doing the documentary on it myself, I heard the same thing from everyone. First, you heard about the Garage. Then you heard about Larry Levan. Then those who heard about Larry Levan wanted to go because they heard about the Garage. It was like, oh, I heard he's incredible. I hear the sound system. People were like, whoever that is DJing there is incredible. They wouldn't even know it was him. They didn't in those days, it wasn't about the name DJ yet. It was more like, oh, you know, you go into the gay rate. Oh, sorry, Garage. Yes. And oh, I'll see you there on Saturday. And you knew on a Saturday night at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, most of the industry was there from the record business. They would come from all other DJs, and he would then unload. He'd kill you at that time. He knew people. He'd be getting on around 4:30. You know what I'm saying? Because David DePino would be warming up for a while from 10 o'clock to 3, 10 to 2, 3 o'clock. He'd just stroll in, and it was like what they used to call Zuki. The sound system was called Zuki, I think, if I remember. Michael Sampson said Zuki, yeah, or Bertha, something like that. He would say, "Girl, I'm gonna fire up the Zuki," and he just and boom, it was like someone took off, like somebody like let the stage open. It was like that incredible. So when you say to me, "What's the experience?" Alice in Wonderland, or the Wiz, or what is it? Not Diana Ross. Yeah, Diana Ross. When she hit her shoes, and the place became electric. That's what it was like. Not every time I went was like that, but the few times he served you. When I mean served you, and he felt like he was in the right frame of mind, and the music was right, and the people were on fire. Forget it. It was like just every DJ wanted that. Every DJ I know that went there says the same thing. I wanted to be that DJ. I wanted to be Larry Levan. My dream was I would someday be that. I never thought I could ever be there, but I think a lot of us thought, oh my God, have a sound system like that, have that kind of power and be revered for that. And then he was mixing records, and the Peach Boys, it was incredible. Like they had their own group coming out of the Garage. And then it was the Garage. We don't get better than the Garage in New York, you know, as a dance music aficionado. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. I hope that sums it up. That's my take on it, from the scene, living it, being around it, my friends. We still judge a lot of things to that. Like that's a benchmark for us in a sense. It's a benchmark. It's hard to forget something so phenomenal like that. Even its worst times were the best of times. you know what I'm saying? I mean, I people remind me of things that happen. You forget, and you go, "Oh my God, that's right." And the drama. I've seen people get kicked out of that club, banished for a year.
Why?
Well, I don't want to mention the DJ's name, but I will say this. Some DJ used to yell out, "Come on, Larry, play some new records," every week. All of a sudden, we saw a light. The room went dark. And the white light went zoom, right on the person. And then we saw security come. It was like, oh boy. And then my other friend just reminded me that there was, I think Jelly Bean was playing at a club. It wasn't the Fun House. This was after. And somebody brought flyers in. And the staff caught wind of it. And they said to my friend, Michael wants to see you in the office. All he did was get a flyer. And, you know, he's one of the regular core crew member, core. You had a core card, meaning you got in free. You were there every week. You're part of this, basically part of the staff. You may not have been employed, but you were a very integral part to the staff because you may have helped them with decorating or whatever your job was. Anyway, somehow, or some way, he got a flyer about Jelly Bean playing somewhere, and Michael Brody caught a fit over it. Who's bringing that stuff in my club? You doing it? You're banished for 6 months. Banished him. You imagine a club owner telling you can't come back for 6 months. He's like, wait. So now he had to go and say, well, this person gave it to me. Like he was the police. Well, I didn't. Are you kidding me? I'm not. Well, we're taking your core card away from you. Now you have to pay for membership. All right, he says, that's your punishment. That's the kind of pecking order that was cared about in a club, that they cared that somebody brought in. How dare you bring in flyers from another club? You got caught with shit like that, banished. But imagine that you're on the dance floor, you're screaming, Larry, play some goddamn new records. And all of a sudden the light comes on this DJ. And the music stopped. And here's the drama. Music stops, the white light's on him, so the whole crowd is looking. Now you gotta go. It's time. You know, you can hear some of the brothers say, excuse me, it's time for you to go. You can hear them screaming out. Hey, I heard it. I'll never forget. It's time for you. God damn it, you need to go now. You know, the whole crowd's heckling. I'm like, wow. That's fierce. When you have that kind of power, that you want to know what the Paradise Garage is? Here's another quick story. Imagine you get a new record, Larry mixes. He's like, you know, Dave Morales, Louis Vega, myself, any one of us could have remixed. Here's the difference. He's in New York City in the best club money can buy, in a sense. And here's the other part to the Paradise Garage. Members only club, no alcohol. I repeat, no alcohol license, no bottle service yet in those days. None of that nonsense, except you can get your kicks off some other stuff that you can get off the dance floor, but I'm not going to talk about that anyway. So Larry Levan, if you all know, if you see, please look him up. You'll see pictures. You'll see this controller in front of him. You know, in the booth, they always show like this thing. He has a Thorns turntables, and he's got his setup in the console, and above him is this controller. What that controller is, because not a lot of people understand what that is. They think it could have been like something like, you know, for the turntables. No, that was a lighting control, which meant that he could pull the remote, because he was a light man originally. He could pull the lights at any second to pull him away from the light man so he could take full control of the club. But check this out. Not only did he have control of the lights, say the dance floor lights, he had control of the exit lights. He had control of the front light of the front of the club. He had control of lights, lighting everywhere in that club from this box. So Larry Levan played a new mix of his or something new. I don't remember what record it was. And the crowd's not having it. They figured, nah, ain't feeling it. They go and get some drinks. They go to the movie room. They go up on the terrace up above on the rooftop. You ain't feeling it. So now he gives you 2 or 3 of your favorite songs and he rips you apart. Let's say he'll play Nothing Man Put Asunder, he'll play Teddy Pendergrass. Crowd screaming at this point. Now he plays his record again. This could have been Heartbeat, Tana Gardner, which he cleared the floor many times. Could have been that one. It could have been anyone. Don't Make Me Wait. The first time he played it, it's the same thing with the garage crowd. They ain't feeling it. They run off the dance floor. The core people stay. They're like, okay. He's like, I'll fix you bitches. Right? This time, he plays 5 more records to rock them, screaming. They're sweating. Maybe Bad for Me. Who knows? Love is a Message. Crowd's going nuts. Larry. Now he plays his record. This time, he smokes out the room and darkens the room to a point that there's no exit lights. You can't see in front of you. So you don't know where to go. You're like, oh my God. He's like, go ahead. Try to walk off the floor now. You ain't walking. He talking it so bad. It's pitch black. Like someone pulled the power. And the system is roaring with this record. They're screaming it now. They're dancing to it now. And then the lights come on. And in the crowd, you could just imagine your hair like that. And your hair just stands up like this. You're like, oh my God, what a high. What a high. That's what the kind of stuff, the drama, or a DJ talking to you through songs, through the words. If he felt like he was looking for somebody, he'd play you Searches to Find the One. Search to find the one. You know what I mean? Like search. Oh, Larry's looking for somebody, right? So you would know the music and to tell you the truth, Nikki started that. Nikki started the Message records, and because, Kenny and I were talking about Carpenter. Nikki would be the one I would give that credit to. He was the one who played the Message records. But Larry Levan and the Garage was the Loft on a grander scale. If you've been to the Loft is David Mancuso's apartment with a sound system in his living room. So you can go in his kitchen, open up his refrigerator, and take some food out, sit at the kitchen table, and then dance. Larry Levan's Loft is Paradise Garage. That's what they wanted. So those are the blueprints of how this all is. That's the Paradise Garage, basically.
Wow. That was incredible. What made the Garage so special?
Couldn't get in easy. It's hard to get in. That's number one. That was a big problem. The second thing about it was a place to be. People spoke about it everywhere, quietly. Yo, did you go to the Garage? Yo, you know this sound? Yo, you know that record? Yo, such and such is playing it. Word got out like crazy. They didn't do no advertisement. It was all word of mouth. I remember being in Queens. My friends' 2 cousins, they were older than us, and they were talking about, yo, man, we're going to the Garage tomorrow night. Just like I said, in those days, I was like, what do you mean the Garage? And I knew exactly what they were talking about. Later on, I figured it out. They would talk about the Paradise Garage. Yo, man, the ladies are fine on Friday night. They would say to the ladies are fine. And that's another thing. Fine women on a Friday night there. Unbelievable. Amongst that, people don't realize, beautiful women on a Friday night. Great. I mean, I think because they brought that college crowd in. What made Garage really the place was the music and the sound. And you could be you. You weren't, this is people coming out. You gotta understand. We see it on TV now. Everything's relaxed with, gay relationships. In those days, this was very kept closety. This was the only place where you could dance with same sex and not be looked down upon. That was a really big thing. And then if you were artsy, who you were going to meet there, If you were into the music side of the music business, what a better place to get your record played. Because if you had a record that played on the weekend there, guaranteed that record was going to be a hit on Monday. That's why garage was so, in a sense, a mystique. Where is this place? Barrack and King. Oh, that neighborhood? Horrible. So you see here. Oh, man, it's rough down there. Yeah, damn right it's rough down there at night. But you know what? But it's where the good clubs were. You know, and that's what made garage. Couldn't even, if you didn't have someone bring you, you didn't even know where it really was. You know, for years, nobody knew what that club was. They didn't even know where it was. I'm telling you, it was really the mid 80s that it started to explode. Not in the beginning. The beginning was core people knew about it, that were gallery people that went to Nikki's gallery. They knew about it because they were core followers, but the rest of New York City didn't realize it till really Frankie Crocker on WBLS started saying, I was at the Paradise Garage Saturday night, man, that boy was on fire. What the hell are they talking about? I mean, the boy, Larry Levan, just killed it. He played this record, Ain't No Stopping Us Now, and you're going to hear it first right here on WBLS, and boom. So now the music industry realized, if Larry Levan plays my record, maybe it'll tip off to Frankie Crocker. And what happens when your record gets on WBLS on New York radio? You got a hit record. Then you got all the other stations around the country and around New York and everywhere else. And now you're making people who are not known into superstars. So a lot of things happened. You know, first superstar remixer, Larry Levan. You saw his name on records, Larry Levan. And then what made it even more famous, now that I remember, was you would see records like the Garage Mix, Larry Levan's mix. So who the hell's Larry Levan? And who's this Garage? Well, and then you start seeing it being written up in the magazines, slowly but surely. And that's what made people go nuts for wanting to go to wanting to get there and experience it.
Describe the dancing.
Oof. The dancing to me was based heavily on talcum powder on the dance floor, so you didn't have non-friction, and it was more freestyle. You had the dancers that I call friends of mine, like Archie Burnett and Oscar Reyes, that were part of the houses of extravaganza. In those houses, they were coming and doing, even before voguing was known. That would be what everyone saw Madonna do that song Vogue, Come On, Let's Vogue, and they were doing their hands and moving. That's what the garage was. Also, a lot of acrobatic moves on their hands, spinning around. I would call it like breaking your back, literally. I mean, it was crazy. They would do splits. They would do, it was jazz dancing with street dancing. Okay, not everybody danced like that, but there was that crowd, I would say Banji boys, that were, coming with those sweatpants and those, they look like the shoes that the boxers use.
Capizios?
Not Capizios. No. Because they were high tie. They went up 3/4 up your leg, kind of like a
like a wrestling shoe,
right? Like wrestling shoes with leather bottoms. So you were able to slide. That was the gear of the garage. T-shirt, the huevo pants. They call them huevo. If I remember, huevo pants. Looks like, I'll tell you who made fun of it. MC Hammer in his film and in his first video. What's the song? Can't Touch This. You see him with those pants. They're like really, they widen out when you dance. That was garage stuff. See, all that stuff that you see in regular MTV stuff, a lot of things were going on in dance floor, and designers were looking, and they were getting ideas from people going home and making their own outfits. So the huevo pants and those wrestling type of sneaker that they wore, that was the gear. And T-shirts cut, and they have bandanas on for sweating, and they would be dancing all night, breaking their backs. That was that crowd. Then you had people who just went there and they danced all night long. All night. Just stood with the DJ and danced. They went there to get their, what I call, get their life on that night. Forget their problems. Because everybody that was coming to the garage had issues, I find. People would be talking about what's going on in their day life. When they walked through the Paradise Garage doors, that was stopped. You didn't remember anything. It's like going to church. He's playing you records to clean your soul, literally. What an education. What an education.
Talk to us about New York at the time. Originally from Brooklyn, describe the Brooklyn club scene.
In those days?
Yeah.
Everything that was hot was Manhattan. In the boroughs had cliques. You went into Brooklyn clubs, you went to a Queens club, you had to go with friends that you knew the people because there was always fights. Those weren't based on music. Those were based on more like picking up. And I mean picking up is you're going there looking for a woman or you're going there looking for a guy. It wasn't based on music. Few places were, but more so I call them the meat markets. In the sense is that you were going there for some drinks, you're going to hook up. Same in Long Island, Queens, Brooklyn. Not to say they weren't playing great music, but I'm going to tell you now, you ain't hearing Soma Cosa in those Brooklyn clubs like that. Like when you walked in or City Country City in those clubs, you had to go into Manhattan to hear, Teddy Pendergrass, Don't Leave Me This Way, the full version, 10 minutes, and hear the place go nuts. I mean, you were hearing a lot of these clubs were playing music that was on the radio because their clientele was a regular working crowd. And they went there for a few drinks, hook up, and, scream on a dance. So, I mean, you see it today. It's like those places that do, dinner dancing, same as back then. And it just wasn't a place where you're going to come out drenched sweat. And you didn't care how you went there and how you looked. You went there because you danced. You know what I'm saying? You went there for the night, you had your best outfit on, and you spent a couple hours, you went home, and Monday's work. Garage was nothing like that. New York City was nothing like that. Manhattan clubs, a lot of the Manhattan clubs were, all about music first, and everything else was secondary. Even the look, aesthetically, they can care less. Those places in the boroughs looked a little bit more, let's say, properly put together, a little too plush. Some of them corny plush. And I call them corny because they look corny with the fake lighting. It's like they got fake disco lighting, like the cheap. Okay, whatever, fake lighting. They got the cheapest light system you could have ever seen. Looks like someone took some plastic clear pieces, cut them and put them over gel lights. That's what their fancy dance disco light system was. You went to a Manhattan club, you saw gigantic stacks, you saw laser lighting, they had smoke machines to die for. I mean, kill you in a room. They didn't do that stuff in the boroughs. Boroughs was like, you got to wear a jacket to come in. You got to be 25 to go to the club. It wasn't like that in New York City. New York City was like, yo, man, you going to the underground. Yo, man, you're going to Palladium. You're going to Garage. You're going to wherever you were going. And you had a great time because the DJs were fierce and they weren't afraid to play up and coming music out in the sticks, in the boroughs, Brooklyn. They were playing stuff that was, been being played for a long time. You hear the same records. The guy who played the same stuff over and over, you go, I'm going to Manhattan. That's what you would say. I got to go to the city. If you were into something, you wanted to make it, you had to get out of the boroughs. You had to go into Manhattan if you wanted to be big time. It's the way it was. Up until the last few years, until all of a sudden Brooklyn had this what I call gentrification. Now all the big clubs are in Brooklyn, but back then those clubs would never have made it in Brooklyn. Never. They were all Manhattan style clubs. The only reason why it's working in Brooklyn is because Manhattan doesn't want it because of the real estate prices.
Talk to me about your first production?
Who brought me into the business? I have to give that to Rick Lenore. Rick Lenore is a producer out of Chicago, and his fame is "I gotta work it to the boom, boom, boom. I gotta work it to the boom, boom, boom." Remember that song? L&R, Les and Rick. In those days, I was playing at a small club called the Underground, Union Square, 14th Street, small with a Richard Long sound system. So I was playing all his stuff on his record label, and I was friends with him. I was talking to him all the time on the phone. And he was the one saying to me, "Yo, man, you could do it, bro. Look at David Morales. David just mixed Instinctual Imagination." I'm like, "I know. David's blowing up now." Like, this is how we were talking. Like, yo, I mean, David's always been an inspiration to me. He's a friend, and, you know, he's got a history, and rich histories too, in house music. And I'm watching David Morales, and I'm seeing this guy, and I'm like, Shep Pettibone's huge. And I'm like, man, I got to try this. A friend of mine, years ago, we went to a small store called Rogue Music in Manhattan, and he says, "Let's go and let's talk to the guy about, keyboards." And I'm like, "All right." So I go and talk with the guy. Salesman says, "Yeah," he shows us, MIDI had just started, basically. He says, "You could do this in your house." I'm like, "Really?" So I'm like, he's showing us, and I'm like, so my friend winds up getting a keyboard and a computer. And that was my introduction. By him doing it, I was force majeure in a sense. He's like, he bought a drum machine, and then when he didn't like the drum machine, I bought the drum machine from him. Make a long story short, I wanted to make house records. Chicago house was starting to happen, and my first record was called Babuda. And Rick on L&R Records, he wound up signing. He told me, "Look," he said, "bro, if you make a record, I'll put it out." I said, "Really?" Now, this is huge. This is 1988. All right? House music is just starting to make its cusp. I mean, it's already been being played since 86, but people are starting to, normal folk are starting to realize what this is. This is not like it's just a cool thing for all of us. Now, other people. So he's like, "Look, dude." So my good friend Dennis comes over, and I says, "Bro, if I do a beat, will you sing, will you do the," he says, "Yeah." So I made this tribal beat, whatever it was at the time. And he goes, "Give me the mic." I hit the record on the cassette machine, and he goes, "Babuda, Babuda." And I'm like, that sounds great. I'm thinking, oh, this is awesome. This could be played at the Choice. I'm thinking like the clubs that could be played at, Choice. I can hear this club. And that's the first thing I'm thinking about. Oh, an underground style tribal track. This is perfect. 4:00 in the morning. So I finished out the record. I sent it to Rick. Rick says to me, "Yo, man, this is pretty good." I said, "You think so?" "I'm not sure." He says, "Look, I'll press up 500 copies. We'll see how we do." In the end, I think he sold 850 or 900 for my first record. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but I'd never had a record out before. So he's like, "Keep going. You could do it." So that was the first production that I got out the door. Now, when I hear that record back now, it's garbage, but you got to start somewhere. Now, the first record that everybody really got to know who I was as a producer was when Gladys Pizarro from Strictly Rhythm signed my Butch Quick Higher record.
Take a step back. Who is Gladys Pizarro? What is Strictly Rhythm?
Okay. Strictly Rhythm Records, an underground house label that became a commercial style dance label with a lot of hit records. The owners were Mark Finkelstein and the A&R person, artist in repertoire, which means this person would come out and bring music to the label to sign. Her name was Gladys Pizarro. Gladys was a integral part in dance music. Make a long story short, names like DJ Armand Van Helden, Roger Sanchez, Little Louis Vega, Eric Murillo, and the list goes on. She helped sign their records and help them shape their careers through what she signed. So for me, coming out of doing what I was doing and hooking up with an honorable label that had some strong hype in the street, like Strictly Rhythm, was a big upscale move for me at that time. So the Butch Quick Hire record, I signed, and it's just about this time of year, December. I remember bringing it to her, and I left it with her. Or maybe it was November or December, early December. And in those days, we used to go on a Christmas hiatus around right before Christmas, 2 or 3 days before, for 2 weeks until January 9th, when the record labels used to close down and all the distributors that would service the record stores with actual vinyl and CDs would all shut down during those days. Nowadays, you don't shut down anymore because there's no physicals like there was back then. But in those days, if the distributors closed, the record labels would follow. So I drop off my cassette to her and I leave it. And I don't know. I mean, okay, let me back it up. DJ Tony Humphries, 98.7 KISS FM, WRKS in New York. He used to have a show Fridays and Saturdays every week for years. It was called the Tony Humphries Master Mix. Okay? Tony Humphries used to play 3 hours on Fridays and 3 hours on Saturdays. That's a total of almost 6.5, 7 hours. Okay? Sometimes live on a Saturday, sometimes not, pre-recorded. Anyway, I got Tony Humphries, my Butch Quick Hire track before anybody touched it. Tony Humphries, I give him the first because he's the first guy that played it on radio. So I gave him the reel to reel. That was made on a 1/4-inch tape machine. Back in the day, we didn't do things like today with waves and MP3s. We actually made physical tapes, either a cassette or a reel to reel. So if you wanted to give a better quality, you use what they call an open reel to reel, and you would record your track to that to give to someone to play if they were going to program it in a show for radio, because the cassette was not of high quality. So I gave my reel to reel to Tony Humphries, this 1/4-inch tape. It's called Butch Quick Hire, and I said, wrote on a club mix, hope you love it, Lenny. Whatever I wrote. Gave it to Tony to Carlton. I remember Carlton used to work from Carlton Roseborough, another good friend of mine. Carlton says, you sure, Lenny, this is good? You sure? Because I ain't going to bring this to Tony unless it's really good. I said, Carlton. I said, bro, I know you a long time. I said, if you know I'm going to give you something, I'm going to give you. He said, because you know Tony's funny. You know Tony's funny about playing stuff, and it's got to be good. I'll never forget. We were at 1650 Broadway at his van in 1991. I said to Carlton, I said, Carlton, I said, do me a favor. I said, please, for the love of God, I'll never forget. I said, just give it to Tony. Because he don't like it, he ain't gonna play it. And I can't make him play it if you don't like it. I said, Carlton. And he hears, he's gonna be laughing because he's gonna remember this. Carlton, I said, please just give it to Tom. Give it to the man. Give it to Hump. Give it to Home Fries. So all of a sudden, I'm in 2 weeks, maybe a week later. I'm in the car. I'm going somewhere. I don't know where I was going. Maybe I was going to Mars, to the club back then. I don't know what I was. I don't know if I was DJing. I don't remember. I remember all of a sudden I hear it's 1 o'clock in the morning, 98.7 KISS Master Mix, Tony Humphries. I want to take you higher. I stopped my car. Immediately, I heard my song on KISS. I was gobsmacked. Holy smoke. Tony's rocking this thing now. Rocking this Butch Quick Hire track. The piano is playing in it. It's one of these uplifting. Who's in the track? Butch Quick. Barbara Tucker on the backgrounds. Althea McQueen.
Wow.
You heard it here first. Barbara Tucker, Althea McQueen. We're all friends today. And I worked for Barbara Tucker too at Underground Network. I was her DJ too after Louis left. But Barbara Tucker, she did the backgrounds on that track. And I could hear her still screaming, hiya. Okay. And all of a sudden I hear the piano, because that's me playing the keys on that record. And I hear my piano parts and I hear the song come in and on KISS Master Mix. And I said, I screamed because it was New York radio. It was my calling, my catalyst, my calling card. Now, Tony Humphries playing the record. Back to Gladys Pizarro, Strictly Rhythm Records. In those days, I had a beeper. We didn't have cell phones yet. Beepers. So I see a 212 number come up, and I don't recognize the number. And I'm in a doctor's office, and I say to the nurse or the secretary, says, said, excuse me, do you mind if I use your phone? I just gotta make a quick phone call because I don't have no pay phone, right? I call up and I hear my song playing and she's like, yo, Lenny. I'm like, yeah. She's like, yo, this shit's fire. You just signed this, anybody? I said, no. I said, Tony Everybody's playing. She said, I didn't even know Tony's playing it. She didn't even know Tony's playing. She says, yo, promise me, we're going to go into Christmas. Don't sign it. And when we come back, I'm going to bring you and I want to sign the record. And we signed it. And that was my first big record. That's what opened the door. I went to the UK right after and played gigs, and that record was played everywhere and people knew about me. So it was a matter of now the record was finding me and I'm finding the record and the people. So we're putting the faces together first. The next thing is, you ain't black? This is the best part. You ain't black? God damn it, I thought you were black with that record. And I used to do this. I would go, I'm half Puerto Rican, if that helps. No, but we thought you were black. That shit sounds so black, boy. Yo, we thought you, man, damn, man. Just like they would say. They would say to me, God damn. This I could curse, I don't want to curse. But they were like, yo, this white boy, he. Just like that. I cracked up laughing. You sure? Homie, you sure you did that? You sure? Because that's just too fucking funky for your ass. I got shit. You have no idea the stuff I heard. I cracked up laughing. But the people who knew me as a DJ knew that I go that way. I roll that far. They knew it. They knew the people I was around. They knew the places I played. For ones that didn't know, they saw me coming. They would always say to me, you look like a lawyer. You look like the doctor coming in. You don't look like the producer. You know, I don't have the DJ. Well, how the hell's a DJ look? What am I supposed to do? Put my hat on to the side like this? I mean, what am I supposed to do? Go like that? Put my hat to the side and go, you know, and I mean, I don't know how to look. I don't know what the hell to look. In those days, I dressed real preppy looking and shit. And they were like, yo, he ain't black. That would crack me up every time. But it was a compliment. I loved it. I thought it was the greatest compliment of all time. Just like when I got #1 gay DJ in Ibiza in the mid-2000s, and I'm not gay. It was the greatest. I was like, because right away, New York DJ, he's gay. Got to be gay. And I'm black. I'm black and I'm gay. So that's the funniest of all of it. I knew you're getting a good laugh. I knew you would. But everybody who's listening to this will understand it's okay. Remember, we had no phones in those days. We had no social media. They thought Lenny Fontana was some show name. They didn't know it was my real name. So what's your real name? Lenny Fontana. So what's your real name? Lenny Fontana. No, man, that can't be his real name. What's up with this mother? That nigga crazy? So they would say to me all the time, dude, that's my name. Everything is a show name. So everything was great. That's the first record store when people got to see me come out of the light, come out of the darkness, come into the light. It's like, here I am. You did that. You did that.
How did that record change your life?
It officially made me, let's put it like this, it rubber stamped the idea that I can do this and really make it, especially when I went to the UK. That was my UK moment where I was accepted. Remember, we were invited to come DJ across the ocean. Who does that? Dude, nobody even knew what I was talking about. I said to them, I'm going to go DJ in England and Italy. First thing out of the idiot's mouth, out of peanut gallery is, they don't have their own DJs over there. Oh, no, they have their own DJs over there. The thing is, they want the American guys. They want the guys that are making the records because these guys are playing our music and we're their heroes. In a sense of like having Johnny Mathis come sing if you play Johnny Mathis, except I'm not a singer, because this is a dance music is driven by a DJ, basically. It's producer-driven music. So the artists, if they're not vocalists on these tracks, normally the DJ is the artist. So it made it official. And then I was getting remixes from the majors. So that was even another big step. You know, I was official that I can do this, that I can actually make. I wasn't thinking about a career yet, but I was thinking, man, I can make it. I can make this work.
How are you supporting yourself while you're building a DJ career?
Oof. At that time,
Mm-hmm.
I was still DJing enough to keep things alive. You know, I was still, I wasn't a rich kid. Like I was no rich guy. I just, you know, I had, you know, at the time I just moved in with my wife now, Kathy, and she basically grew up with me with this. So she was working full time and she said, look, do what you got to do. She believed in me then. She believes in me now. We had a lot of fights over this business. I'm not gonna lie.
What was the biggest fight you guys had over this?
Why are you still doing it? You know, why are you still doing this? Why are you, you know, chasing this? Why are you, these are things you know, years. I'm not talking about in the beginning. I'm talking about years later. You know, you've had success. I've had hit records, all that. And then things dry up and slow down. You know, you have moments of, you know, where I call them reflections. You start reflecting on, why am I still doing this shit? Why am I out of my mind? Kind of. I don't care who you are. You have those moments. I remember Frankie Knuckles even telling me that. He said to me, you think you're the only one going through this? I'll never forget when he told me that. He said, pull it together. He says, you're better than that. He says, look at me. Look what I've gone through with my leg and all that stuff he told me. That's Frankie telling me that. I said, Frankie, I don't know why nobody wants, they don't want our music no more. He says, listen, everything's in cycles. It'll come back. We just got to weather through it. I'll never forget him telling me that. So when he gave me that speech, I was like, okay. He said, you look at all the records I played of yours. He said, come on. It's not like you're not talented. You just got to weather the storm. I'll never forget he told me, he said, girl, he said like this, girl, pull it together. Just like that. He said, you know better. You know damn right. And you know damn, I can hear him say, you know better than that, than to be crying like this. And I wasn't crying. He said, don't even go there. He says, you've done so much. I've watched you. I've played with you. I've worked your records. He said, it happens to the best. Quick story. Nile Rodgers said to me on a flight going to San Francisco, we were talking about Paul McCartney. He said, when I was doing Madonna, he says, I walked into a restaurant, Paul McCartney was sitting there, and Paul looked down at that time. This is the mid-'80s now. Now, mind you, he says, Paul's got everything. You can't have any better than Paul McCartney. Beatles, Wings. You know, he's a superstar. You're rich, beyond rich. It's not like he's hurting for money or anything. The reason why Paul was down, he said, Paul wasn't feeling like he was wanted at that time. It was in between things where he was in a slump. So he says, no matter how much you think someone may have, they can always feel down and out. He said, and I learned that off of Paul McCartney. When he told me that story, I said, yeah, but Paul's got all the money in the world. He don't have to do shit. He says, yeah, but that doesn't mean everything, he told me. That doesn't mean everything. The success and staying power is sometimes more important than the actual funds, than the monetary reward. So I learned that a long time ago. I said, okay, you know what? If Paul McCartney could feel bad, then my shit don't make me feel any worse. You know what? I can deal with this. But that's the way life is. You know, music is funny. Right now, people are loving what I'm doing again. They want that golden era 90s sound with my new sound and this and that. But there was a time when EDM ruled the roost for a minute there, and guys like myself couldn't find a place anymore. Just the people that loved us were no longer there, and that's a hard thing to accept. Where's my fan base? They gone away. They went away. Now I'm fighting to get them back,
so deep. Talk to me. I think I was trying to remember. I think the first time I met you was probably in Italy, in Riccione, with Maurizio Clemente at the Italian Music Conference.
IMC.
Yep, I remember he flew me out there to photograph. Tell people what the IMC is for those that don't know.
IMC in Riccione, Rimini. It was an expedition they would do at a hall for a few days, and then record labels would put on their new material. They would promote. Companies that were sound people in Europe would all gather in Italy at a convention during the day. At night, they would bring DJs like myself, Tony Humphries, Dave Morales, and others to play at different clubs in the Riccione area so that the same people that went to the daytime convention would have a place to party and mingle at night to do business, because you'd be surprised. You do more business at night sometimes than you do during the daytime, because you meet with people, you're having a couple of drinks, people are loose. So that's what the IMC was all about. It was maybe, they were exposing new DJs or exposing new radio material or exposing new products for European market, this and that. So I was blessed to be able to be invited to go, for a few years successions. And I would play a lot of gigs from that, if I played there. So Maurizio Clemente used to do the, back at that time, and this is in the 90s, he would do the organization, and he would put together with sponsors to bring over a bunch of American talent that he was managing, and also maybe had his pieces into doing some work with record labels, such and such. You bring them all out there to expose the Italian market to what the Americans were doing in the hopes that some future business would come out of it. So they would do an award ceremony night at the end. So it'd be like 3 or 4 nights of doing these different type of showcase gigs with, say, singers. Sabrina Johnson, I remember, was there. Barbara Tucker came as well.
Sabrina Pope, DJ Spen, Charisma, the whole crew.
DJ Spen, Teddy Douglas. I remember Johnny D from Henry Street came with Nikki P. Yeah. God, there was so many people.
The whole New York.
The Yellow Orange crew was there. Louis Vega would be there. Dave Morales would be there. Everybody was there from New York. It was like a New York. It was like the Sound Factory bar in this club, without the dancers, pretty much, of the industry. So you had the core labels, the independents, okay, and some of their staff, A&R guys, coming there, and we would all be together and DJing, kind of like with Winter Music Conference. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to be able to bring that WMC, Winter Music Conference feeling from Miami, which happened in March, okay, every year, and bring it to Italy right in April, before the summer season began. So a lot of the club owners would come and see all this excitement and all this glee, different nights. It gave club owners in different parts of Europe and mostly Italy. And when I mean Italy had a lot of discos, a lot of clubs around Italy. So club owners would come with their, they would call them, what they call those guys? The talent scouts, the talent buyers, okay? Come and see. Oh, they would hear me do a set, and they would tell Maurizio, I want to book them. And then that's how it happened. And it'd be like 25, 30 gigs. Same with the artists, the singers. So there'd be a lot of work coming out of it. And in the end, they used to get, one year we remember we had Coca-Cola, and they gave out Coca-Cola awards, to the DJs that participated, and also best this, best that, honorable mention this, honorable mention that. It was nice. You got to hang out with your friends, laugh constantly, and then be out all night, which was crazy. So that was what the IMC was all about. Okay. I got to know people like Teddy Douglas better because of that. We had a lot of time with Michael Watford. These became like the garage. IMC became my friends from the house music scene that I didn't really, they lived in Baltimore. We lived in New York. I didn't see them that often unless they came into town. And if they came in the club, I saw them for 5 minutes. Hey, how you doing? We were going to breakfast, lunch and dinner, and then at the club. we were forced to hang out because we had one bus, like we're on tour.
Remember,
one tour bus,
yeah,
one tour bus, and we had to go to wherever they told us.
And stay to the end. Stay to the end.
I used to call it like this, rot to the end. Exactly. Rot it out, and then be up in the morning again. Here we go, doing this again. Come on, Maurizio. Come on. Are you kidding? And he'd be like, hello, everybody. We're going to go to the Prince Disco tonight to do the gig. Oh, Jesus. Everybody be like, oh, Christ almighty. Here we go. And then when we get to the Prince Disco, we'd be going crazy and acting like fools, like a bunch of kids, like idiots, screaming and dancing and carrying on for 4 days. And that was it. That was what we did. And making fun of everybody and joking on each other. And that's what made it fun. We became like a class trip. It was like a class trip. It was that intimate that I even had side chats with Tony Hump. While the club was going on, he would say, yo, come on. We go outside the club and walk around and talk for hours while the club thing's going and go back in. It was like, I could never have done that if I went to Zanzibar. Even if I went to hung out with him in his office. We were forced to have to mingle that. We became that close, all of us. You know, I call Teddy to this day, Teddy Douglas. Yo, Teddy, what's up? You know, that's how I am. He does, hey, Lenny. And it's like family. It's like family. We pick up right where we left off. Right where we left off. Those IMCs were that amazing. At the time, we may have thought it sucked because we were like, oh, man, we got to do this again. And someone like me be like, yo, what's for dinner? Yo, where are we going for dinner? Because that's all I've been thinking about, the food. I could care less. Then we go back in the hotel room, sleep all day, come back down, and eat again.
And then they're about to take us to Peter Pan or something.
Right. Tonight we're going to the Peter Pan disco. Really? Tony's going to play. Spen, Tony, Teddy, and Ralphie. Really?
So
that's
good.
Maurizio, right? That's Maurizio.
So good. Two-part question. What is house music? What is soulful house music?
Jesus Christ. What is house music? The technical term of house music comes from Chicago. A record store called Gramophone put up this sign that said, music heard in Frankie's house. Frankie Knuckles we're talking about at the warehouse. The term house then became, yo, what's this music that Frankie's playing in his house? And over, that's the term started. And then you heard about terms jacking your body. What's jacking your body? When they would jump up and down. And Steve So Curly makes a song, Jack Your Body. And it starts to become synonymous amongst the commercial people. Jack your body, jack your body, jack. Then what officially puts the stamp on house music is Marshall Jefferson when he makes the house. Not only does he have an arrogance about his song, but he's going to call it the house music anthem. We didn't even know it was called house music. And he calls it house music anthem. So that's the terminology from what I understand. The house, the name of it, where it comes from. Soulful house. Soulful house is minor type keys with a spiritual type vocal. Minor key meaning it's a darker sound with a Rhodes keyboard. Rhodes piano was a electric piano made from Fender Rhodes. Okay. It's modeled after a piano, but it's got a very vibrous sound, like a vibraphone. So when you play and sustain and hold those notes, it's got a very warm, round, ear candy-ish feel to it, that you appreciate it. And so those that don't know what I'm talking about, if you ever went to a wedding and you heard them playing music in a time when you're going for your hors d'oeuvres and you're hearing like this, pretty keys, glassy sound, that's what a Fender Rhodes sounds like. It was especially during the 70s. My God, you heard this Fender Rhodes everywhere, in every record, I don't care if you went to a kid's baptism, you heard the Fender Rhodes because it was the keyboard of the time. So that's what soulful house is based around, that and a live bass feel with a spiritual sounding vocal, which they would categorize as more gospel-y, and the chorus has got a very churchy feel to it. The more churchy, the more soulful. That's how they categorize soulful house.
Perfect. You had a residency at Studio 54.
Yes, at the end.
What is Studio 54 for those that don't know? And then tell us about your residency.
Studio 54. Oh my God. Studio 54 is a club for those that was on 54th Street in Manhattan on the west side. It was this is the place where they used to film The Honeymooners and some shows that CBS used to do. It was a film production studio that later became a theater, or theater first, then film production studio. These two men that were from Queens, Ian Schrager and Steve Rebell. Steve Rebell, from what I understood, owned some sort of steakhouses called the A1 or something like that. If I don't remember if that's what it's called or something like that, but it was a steakhouse in Long Island. And Ian Schrager was an attorney. Okay, and they got together and they started this place called the Enchanted Gardens in Queens. It's in Douglaston Manor. Steve Rebell, being gay, used to go to the clubs in Manhattan in the early 70s, and he wanted to do something, wanted to have something amazing. He felt that he needed to create something. He just didn't know how. From what Nicky explained to me, Nicky Siano, was he used to come to gallery and Steve would say to him, "If I ever open up a club, would you play it for me? I really need you to play." Like this over in Steve Rebell. And Nicky's like, yeah, whatever. Nicky is not paying attention. Nicky's got his own thing. And, the gallery, again, and go back to the earlier part of this interview, the gallery was a major blueprint to this whole gamut of things that came, the plethora of things that came after. So 54, Steve Rebell and Ian Schrager create this thing called the Enchanted Gardens, and they set it up in Queens, and that was one of the first discos they did. It was a success. They had a DJ named Paul Casella playing there. So this whole Queens thing is happening. Okay. Then they ventured out to this idea that they were going to go into Manhattan and create the super club. They just didn't know how they were going to do it. That they wanted to do something that was on a grand scale. Mind you, before Studio 54, there was no such thing as a light jockey. That's the first club that did that. Okay. There was no bottle service like that. They did it first. So all the things that you see today, that club was like the dinosaurs in a sense. That club set it up. Lighting, atmosphere, feeling, where you bring in superstars with common folk. He wanted a bit of both. That was Steve's idea. He didn't want people that looked like him. He wanted those people. So studio was, all right, we're going to create this, bring me superstars. So he had Carmen D'Alessio, one of the top promoters in New York, who had a very big black book to Broadway and Hollywood. She was able to coerce these people to come. And they used the paparazzi as their catalyst for the first time before social media was what you think social media is today. So even with them, they were first to do this. They made it to the point that they controlled what pictures they wanted to go out in the papers. They did all this stuff. So this is, again, another blueprint. Studio's the first to do all this, first to have lighting, first to have superstar A-stars, Bette Midler, all these people, Henry Fonda. I mean, these people were in the Hollywood movies. they're a studio with tuxedos on. And then you have the gay crowd. So he had a bit of everything. And that's how he wanted it. So studio is that. And then he had a really good DJ named Richie Kazar, who was his resident DJ. Again, Nicky came a little bit after. Nicky played the off days. Richie played on the Saturdays. Gloria Gaynor's career was pretty much discovered there, from what I understand, because he played I Will Survive and all the story. If you read the story, yada, yada, yada. All the other clubs wanted to be like studio. They all, Xenon opens up, is copying the lighting of studio, copying this. They want to get the crowd of studio, and that becomes the New York de facto. Now studio becomes the mecca of clubbing worldwide, because now people are jet setting around the world to come see studio because it's in all the papers. Because say if Brooke Shields was shot there, it was in all the papers around the world. At Studio 54, New York City, look at her dancing. The Queen of Monaco is dancing with the Prince Rainier, and it wasn't even about the music no more. So it became more about social media in the early days of clubbing. The club got big. Steve Rebell got bigger. His head even got bigger too, because he thought he was bigger than the IRS when he was on TV saying, we make more money than the IRS. Well, that's all he had to say. That's all he had to say. IRS saw that. Let's find out what this little PRICK is doing. And that's what they did. I watched that story. The lead investigator says, we're going to learn about this studio. You know, because mind you, nightclubs in New York were mafia run. I don't know if people talk about that, but I remember that. They were mafia ran. So you had protection, but you had to pay for that protection. Everything comes at a price. You get protected. They were protected, but they weren't protected enough to be having the IRS stop. So the IRS came in. In the end, if you ever watched the Studio 54 movie, it is true. They came in, they found the money, arrested them. They had Roy Cohn as their attorney. Roy Cohn is the blueprint to Trump, and how Trump is from what our president is a Roy Cohn disciple. Okay. So if you understand how arrogant Trump is, could you imagine what Roy Cohn was dealing with the IRS? Okay. They were his clients, Steve Rebell. So they wound up doing 2 years, and they had to sell the club to get out of it and all that. So the club went on, it closed, it reopened, and it went through the 80s. By the time I got in there, if I remember correctly, Louis Vega was playing, Freddie Bastone was playing there as well. I was doing some of the nights. Then they brought Larry Levan in to bring after Paradise Garage closed. And this is the later part of the 80s. And I got my chance. I know Leroy Washington played, Kenny Carpenter played, a lot of great DJs. My friend Dwayne Holt played Studio 54. And what's crazy it is, as this sounds, with all the things I ever done in my career, this was in my bio from day one. And in the 90s, nobody cared less about playing these clubs. It wasn't until recently that somebody said to me, I am so impressed with you that you played studio. I went, but when I played, it was shit. It really was. And I'll tell you, the Richard Long sound system, that was gone. The lighting system, that was gone. I had the Clare Brothers sound system in the club. It sounded like a radio. It didn't sound like no studio. And the people were not studio of what you see in the movies. They were Bear Jones's crowd. Bear Jones was a famous promoter in New York in the 80s. And he used to bring his crowd, and his card used to say, you haven't partied unless you partied at a Bear Jones party. His card was everywhere. You look down the floor, you used to throw him around in the street, and you pick up his card, and it'd be a reduced admission ticket. Bear never advertised me as the DJ. I was Bear's DJ. So that's my Studio 54 story. So I says, well, what clubs you played? Oh, I have studio on there. Oh my God, studio. I'm like, not the Richie Kazar studio. This is the abortion Studio 54, the one that they gave us after Mark Fleischman was in and he sold it, and now it was to somebody else. This is like the third or fourth owner of studio. And by that point, you want to know the club that everybody was talking about? Steve Rebell's Palladium. That was the hot spot. Steve was over at Palladium, the owner of 54, because he was getting that club ready, and it was getting ready to blow up. And it was the hot club in New York. Studio was like, it was like if someone left the building and let it rot. Nobody took care of it. That's what it was at that point. But it was my into New York, and Bear Jones, I have to credit to him. If I didn't get the chance, I would never play all those New York clubs like back in that time, because it was hard to get a job in the city. You had to know people. You didn't know people, you didn't get to know you standing on, as I always used to say, you're looking outside Macy's window, looking in, dreaming about getting in. You have to be in it to be part of it. If you're outside the glass, you never get in. You never understand what we're dealing with. So that's my studio story.
What is your True Story series?
True House Stories. For the hats, the paraphernalia. True House Stories was born due to the pandemic. The pandemic, as we all know, is a very dark moment in history. In our lifetime, we have nothing to look back at to this, except the Spanish flu. Unless you were around, I wasn't there. I don't know what it was like back then. So I decided, with my assistant Manuel and my assistant Karen, I said, I know Facebook is going to, this is in the beginning of True House Stories. I was saying, I know all the DJs are playing their live sets free all day. And I know sooner or later, Facebook is going to clamp down on this music problem.
You saw it too, right? You saw it.
I knew it. And I'll tell you why I know it. Because I'm a writer. And when you're a writer with publisher interest, you want to get paid. And my problem with Facebook is, and everybody's problem is with who's in our business, says the same thing. You make all this coin money, crazy money, and you can't pay for the music usage. You can't even do a blanket license. They don't want to pay. So, of course, my sympathetic side was, yes, we're in a pandemic. I think it's a great therapeutic thing for people who are home alone to play music and play all day. I get it. But here's the other bad part. Now there's thousands of people doing it. Now it's like a carotid artery. There's too much. It's like, oh. So I said, I ain't going to be that guy. I got to step out, and I need to do something that's going to be helpful for our community. I said, a lot of people in our business, nobody knows about what they do. Nobody documents their stories. These are like what I would call forgotten heroes. The Frankie Knuckles, the David Morales, the big names. People know our stuff. But what about the other guys that nobody ever got to hear him talk? We want to know about his story, because his story or her story is just important. So we were like, all right, so if I do it on my Facebook artist page, will the reach go? And so we researched and we started to do it. We started to see the numbers start to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 16,000, 24,000. I'm like, wow, this is getting good. This is getting really good. 559 shares. I'm like, these people are paying attention. They're enticed with what I'm doing. Here's the difference in me as an interviewer. If I'm doing music because I'm musically trained and I lived this life, I can understand the questions that people need to hear. In other words, I can, while you're at home viewing, I can get into your mind and throw that question, because most interviewers that are doing these type of jobs, they don't know the history of the game. So if you know the history of the game and you know the players in the game, and you can ask the right questions, helps you drive that vehicle a certain way. And I keep hearing that every time. Nobody interviews like me. It's not that nobody interviews like me. You have to be in our thing to understand how to interview this. Otherwise, you're going to ask me general questions like I've gotten these questions over the years. How do you feel when you make a great record? I feel great. Is my answer. It's a fantastic feeling when you do something great. How about this question? Like this, I say. When you're in the middle of mixing that record, what was going on in your life at that time? Because from how it lists, the record sounds like it's dark and hard. Was there things going on around you that was screwing with your mind? You know, people are like, what do you mean by that? No, when you were mixing that record or making that record, and it's kind of like militant, was that something that you were feeling? And let somebody explain that. And they'll go, wow, I never got asked that question. I mean, DC LaRue, for example, from Cathedrals, we unearthed something that now, thankfully to this show, Faith Magazine took the whole interview from my True House Stories and asked if they can print it. I said, sure, print it. DC LaRue said something very important. He explained how Cathedrals, the song, was born and who was the person that told them. Nobody ever heard that before. Nobody even knew about it. So these interviews are bringing things out from people that they don't really ever get a chance. And you have enough time in the forum to speak, to really express, it's giving someone time to unravel it, because you need time to unravel these things. They don't happen in 10 minutes, as you know. It takes time for memories to be jogged. Like I'd have to bring things up. I remember hearing this, or, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot about that. Oh, good point. And then have them take us on that journey with them. Explain it clearer. Clear that up, because we heard this. Is that really true? I've done that to people. I've asked them, I heard this. Was it like that or not? So that's why it's called True House Stories, because not just house, it's just a true story. And what we've been doing is iHeart picked it up for podcast. Got an Apple Music, got it everywhere. Amazon Prime, everything. And now I got sponsors coming to the show. Who knows? I'm just going to keep doing it. I got some great talent. Louis Vega's coming on, Dave Morales. We got Carl Cox. I'm spreading out. And I'm not just trying to stay in. Now Ron's in discussion. I'm trying to get, bigger acts come and speak and be totally fluid. Let it all out. There's no reason to hide. For what? Let's document it. As long as you don't feel embarrassed. Don't say something or write it unless you really mean it and you want people to know. Otherwise, don't say it. I tell them all the time. So that's what True House Stories. It was born off a dark period to give back some light. Hopefully this will light the way for others. And I'm starting to see other people picking up on it, trying to copy it now. So it's interesting what I'm doing. So we had John Morales on today. He was really good. Eric Cupper. I mean, I never hear Eric Cupper really speak. I'm going after people that you don't get a chance to really hear, but they've done so much in the business that they need to be heard.
Tell us about what is Space Ibiza, and tell us about your residency there.
Oh, Space Ibiza was that was a legendary club on the island. It was in Playa de Embosa.
Which island?
Which is high now.
No, which island? Which island?
Playa de Embosa in Ibiza. It's one of the Balearic Islands of Spain. Okay. My residency was, it was 2010. Yeah, it was that summer. I played which used to be the outdoor part, which they enclosed because of sound restrictions. And I played every Saturday for them. It was an incredible time. I never had a residency in Ibiza. To be honest with you, I'm the first American DJ to play in Ibiza. That I do know. Back in the early 90s, I was the first American. Yes, sir. I know you look shocked. Yes, DJ Pippi from Pacha brought me. So
what is Pacha?
Pacha is another big institution nightclub on that same island of Ibiza, in Ibiza town. What is Pacha? What is it? Space. These are European Spanish clubs that during the summer people jet set to. And they've had other big name DJs play as well. At Space, Carl Cox had his residency as well. Some other people had some. Each night of the summer was a different headline DJ at every club. You had if I remember correctly, the Guinness Book of World Records, the biggest club in the world is Club Coup on that island, which I think can hold 20,000 people. Okay, and has swimming pool inside. So, we thought we had clubs in America, man. When we went over there, we were like, whoa, this is clubbing at a whole different level. They spared no expense to do things because their lives are based in the summers on the tourist attractions, bringing all the people in from May to September. So my residency was to play house music every Saturday. So I was based in Ibiza, and then I would move around Europe playing other gigs during the summers. And I'm not the only one that did that. Other famous American DJs did that as well. But it was a great experience. I did it for 2009 and I did it for 2010. 2 years back to back for them.
What's it like to be an international touring DJ?
At first, it's a privilege to be able to jet set, be in the studio in New York during the week, on Thursday night, get on a plane and play, because you have to leave the night before and play Friday and Saturday in Europe, say England one night or Liverpool in one night, and then play somewhere else, Barcelona Friday, and then maybe play Sunday and then fly back to America. There was a time I was doing that every week. Get on a plane Thursday night, come home Sunday, do it again following weekend. Thursday night, come home Sunday, back in the studio Monday. What a high. I'll tell you what international DJing done for me. It took that feeling of the tunnel vision of being in a town out of my mind. I'm assimilating with the people that live in the area. So I'm being educated on a different level. Talk about like going to college in a sense. You're dealing with people, and if you're interested and ask questions, you're learning things. How people live, what kind of jobs are there, what's the demographic. And these are things I like to know. The culinary side of it, the historical side of it. And I was just taking that all in. It was like, man, this is like I'm getting paid to play and also to travel. What's better than that? I'm not getting paid little money. I'm getting paid a lot of money to do this. This is incredible. So I'm doing that. And then I'm also making records. Wow. What can I say? International. First of all, just to say that I'm international DJ. What do you mean by international DJ? Well, what that means is I get on a plane and maybe I'll play the Queen in Champs-Élysées in Paris this Saturday. But wait, why you? Well, I don't know why me. I'll tell you, but I do know is these guys are playing my music and I have to kind of represent the New York sound, represent what I do, represent it all and play it and turn that. And the thing about being an international DJ was, and is still, you got to hold a certain level of excellence and you have to do your job. And I feel you must do it well if you want to be asked back, because then that'll be one time that you will not be asked back. It's like a singer singing a set, like a Mariah Carey. She sucked. People won't forget that. The people who went to attend that. It's the same thing goes with the DJ. You sucked, clear the floor. You could be sure it's where it's going to get out. So you try your your best endeavors to do what you can to turn that place out. And a lot of times you walk into a place for the first time, you don't know. So you're trying to pull it together. You figure out what records they're into. You try to do this. So international DJing was, how many planes am I going to take to get there? Oh, how far is this? Oh, Australia? Oh, God, I got to travel 24 hours there, 24 hours back. But I'll tell you what experience like no other. People tell me who went into the military and traveled, they got that same feeling of being able to travel the world for work and experience that feeling of education. Because mind you, you may have lived in a neighborhood in the sticks. Maybe you live in the rural part of America. The chances of you ever getting to go to Paris, Athens, Rome, or see all this stuff is probably going to be never for most people. Think about how many people really travel. And here I am. I've been on almost every continent in the world. Sat with rich people, sat with poor people, sat with crazy people, sat with, artistic people, learned. They were interested in what I was doing. I was interested in them. I made friends from it, education. I also was able to test records that I was making them because I was an international DJ. So if I was making something, I want to see how it worked in the dance floor. I could test it in the city, see how it would perform. It was wild. That's international DJ.
Tell us about Karmic Power Records.
You see the logo? What goes in comes out. So I'm into karma and spirituality. So I always believe if you put good things in, you'll get tenfold back. And it doesn't mean you put it in there thinking you're always going to get a return, but I believe if you do things the right way, and that's what Karmic Power was. When I started in 2012 with my assistant Manuel, I didn't have any place to release house music that I was making. Again, back to that time, EDM was the ruling the roost. So a lot of the labels that I used to go to were no longer in business. They were there, but they weren't actively releasing anything. So I really needed to start something. So we were like, what do we do? What do we do? And somebody said to me, maybe you should think about starting your record label. And I went, oh, I don't want to do that. And then it became, all right, let's do it. Then it took me a little time to get the name together. I wanted something that felt of a high power. And Karmic Power had that, Karmic is, and now it seems to be like everyone's talking to me about Karmic Power because of the records we're releasing. But at first it would be, okay, I need a place to release my stuff. And I want to sign new acts, new artists. I want to build a repertoire. I want to give people a chance because I always believe people need a chance, a place to release stuff. And boy, did I go in with a completely different mindset to what truly was going on. I was kind of misled to how things were going in those days. People telling me, oh, they're doing this and they're making that, and this is how many records you're getting released. And man, when we got rolling and started, we were like, everything we were told was a lie. Well, in a sense, that people were fabricating stuff to make themselves look like they were, really big. And I'm going, you sold how many copies? We used to give out 800 to 1,000 free pieces just for promotion. What? That it's like, what are you talking about? This is nothing. So, crash course, we also had to learn the digital business. So all the knowledge I had in vinyl and physical stuff was a curse. Because the digital business is nothing like the old analog business. Analog. What does that mean? Well, back in the day, things were done where they actually pressed up your music and set release dates, and everything was pre-planned and long extension dates. Now you can do things within 1 hour. You can make a track, you can release it within tomorrow, and not ever producing an actual physical copy, except everything's a WAV file or a stream. In those days, you had to plan it out, look at your calendar, get your dates, how many records you're going to sign, and what dates you could slot when and where and how much it cost. And yeah, have a full, now with no money, you could do tons of things. The only difference is that back in the day, it took money to make money. So it weaned out the people who weren't that good because you had to believe in what you did. And how you did that was you had to put money in. And when people have to spend money, woo, that changes everybody's perspective. And I say that one more time. When you got to go for $1, now you got to put your money where your mouth is. And most people can't do that because they don't believe. So that's why the digital business is so, again, overwhelmed with so many people. Because now, well, I got a laptop and I can do, such and such, and I can do, for example, John Morales was saying this, they'll take my Chocolate Sensation record, call it Sensation of Chocolate, and then put their name on it. It's my record. I've seen this happen. And this is what's been happening the last few years. On Track Source and Beatport. I'm seeing full records. I know damn well who made those records. I know them personally, and I'm hearing the record, and I'm seeing Joe Schmo's name on it. I'm like, all you did was take the record, and EQ'd and put a kick, and you're calling it your record. That's the way the ball rolls, baby. So, you have to take it to consideration. All right. So, Karmic Power, when I started, I said, look, we'll look for new acts. And so part of it was I started with that, and then it got serious. I had the studio running, as you can see behind me. Well, I have my shirts up and stuff. But I have my studio for years. I've had the studio since 1999, down here 2000. And I wanted to really make this a go. I wanted to get, I said to everybody, I want a Grammy now. I want a Grammy for one of my damn records. That's what I said. And I had this idea was going to take not too much time to get this back. Boy, okay. So now on the road of success and failure. So we start end of 2012. We don't get running until April 2013. It takes about 6 months. Work out logos, set up all the products. I start getting in the studio to make productions again. And, Manuel's pushing me. You got to do social media. I'm like, no, I don't have to do nothing. He's like, dude, you got to do social media. What are you talking about? Facebook. Why? There's a reason why. Without the social media, you have no catalyst of pushing this stuff. So I had to start pushing my social media and working like super hard to get that. Now I felt like this sucks. Because what I did have and the history behind me didn't really make a difference now with social media. I was coming in at bottom, like down the bottom. Fighting with Facebook to get a like. I saw 2 likes. Yeah! 2 likes, yeah! I look back at 2 likes, I'm like, hey, shit. But at the beginning, 2 likes was like, I'm like, people like, I didn't realize you had to post all the time for the algorithms. What do you mean the algorithm? Oh man, we had to figure all this out step by step. Everyone's telling me they're doing this. Then we're seeing the real numbers. We're going, liars. I'm going, what a liar. What a liar they are. They're telling me these lies. Lies. I said lies. Sit your ass down, liar. Anyway, so I am at a point where I'm going, this is horrible. And then I was anti-Spotify. Oh, I did not want to hear nothing about streaming and what? You're taking my shit for free? Why? I'm fighting tooth to nail. I ain't gonna submise myself to this shit. I said all that stuff. Just like I said in the 90s in DJ and Mix Meg, I would never play CDs. Oh boy, did I live that one down. So, but I always say now, I never say never, because things do change, and things have taught me that everything must change, and change is due. So, me being the old dog, having learned a new trick, I was open-minded, but it wasn't something that was naturally in my DNA, let's say, because I came from the same era that a lot of the other guys came from. You know, this was something that was so, oh God, MySpace. Do you know what MySpace is? Right. Most people won't even know what the hell MySpace was. That was a hot shit in the beginning, 1999, 2000. MySpace. Oh, you gotta have a MySpace account. Wait a minute. Here's even one better. You gotta have an internet page. What's the internet? A website. Wait a minute. Why do I need a website? I only thought the porn industry had a website. No. You got to put your stuff on a website. Why? I had this fight with friends of mine. He says, none of my people even own a computer. He says, trust me, he told me. That's all going to change. Boy, were they right. Pre-smartphones. Everything was stupid when I was working. People used to read the credits on vinyl. What credits? You don't even know who's doing the records anymore. You only see the artist's name now. The credits, like you used to look at the vinyl or the album in the back, that doesn't exist. We got to go to Discogs. What's Discogs? Discogs is www.discogs.com. You put in, say, Lenny Fontana, it'll show you all my records, and then you could click on my record, say, Powerhouse, what you need. It'll give you all the credits that were on the vinyl. That's the only way you could find out. Otherwise, you would never know that Powerhouse is even me. That was another thing. I had to learn of the word and. You hear that word, A-N-D? Well, back in the day, we used to do featuring, presents, this, that, Lenny presents, Louis Vega featuring. That word does not work in Spotify land. Get that out of your vocabulary. Because the feature takes the featured artist out as being the artist. So it'd only be Lenny. So if you go put in Chaka Khan, let's say I was featured Chaka, it would never bring up that record because she's not part of the artist. So we had to learn all that good shit. And Spotify is making hundreds of trillions of dollars. And what do they pay for a stream? 0.000005. It's not even 1 cent. So you need 100 billion streams to make $1,000. Come on, man. That's the way it is. So the key is, and which is the problem right now, is if you can't tour, you can't make money. Now, children of the underground, let me tell you something what I read. David Crosby of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, I read this article. He is now forced to sell his catalog. Do you know why? And his catalog's played. These are records that are played all the time on radio. The reason why he's forced to sell his catalog is because he says he can't travel because of COVID. And Spotify streaming the records like crazy from his catalog, they don't pay him enough money to survive. He's forced to sell his catalog. This is where it's gone to, people. So I got to get back out there playing music super fast. Otherwise, I'm going to die. That's just the way it is. I mean, all of us are based on now performance. The music is the calling card of what I call the business card now. So you're releasing music. And not to say that you don't have a hit record. You won't earn and won't help you with your say if you're a performer. There's performance money there, and you can make a good bank. But let's get out of COVID, and then we get back to normal. It'd be great again. But as of right now, we're living with Lenny's doing True House Stories and getting sponsors, and let's go to a commercial break. Remember, I got to pay my sponsors type of thing right now. You know, that's what we're dealing with. That's, you know, I'm more like Howard Stern than I am a record producer DJ, which thank God. I mean, I thank God I can do it because it's not easy, you know, to interview. Interviewing is an art. It's tough. So at least I've been doing remixes, busy releasing old catalog stuff of mine. I mean, I've been busy, but I do miss playing out. I won't lie. God, do I miss it. So that's Karmic Power, basically, in a nutshell. Karmic is shirts, music, a lifestyle.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. We actually need to do a part 2, or a part 3, and a part 4, because we just scratched the surface. But this was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.